governor of the great state of Minnesota for 8 years. And during those 8 years, he suffered through some pretty difficult times. There were some economic downturns, a lot of things that we're facing today. Economic downturns, bloated government spending, an educational system that was not serving its children to the extent of its ability, and certainly not what the children deserve, and also a lot of healthcare issues there that needed fixed. And fortunately, Governor Pawlenty was on board. He was ready to go, and even though he had a democratically
including one for the whites back when they
he was able to accomplish reforms in each and every one of those areas. So it's my honor and my privilege today to introduce to you Governor Pawlenty.
Thanks, Chuck. Well, thank you. It's good to be back at Boone. It's good to be back at the Pizza Ranch. Thanks for coming out on your Memorial Day weekend. It's a sunny day out there, and I know you could be doing a lot of different things with your precious time. And the fact that you came and spent a little time with me and our team, I really appreciate it. I'm grateful to you. But I think it's important that all of us today step back and reflect upon Memorial Day and what that means to us individually and what it means to our country collectively. As you know, we're a great country for a lot of different reasons, but one of the reasons we're a great country is because we have brave men and women who now and throughout our history stand up and raise their hand and say, if my country needs me, I'll go and I'll serve it. And throughout history and now, they lay on the line for us their time, their talents. They leave behind in the service to our country, their families for a period of time, their jobs. They leave behind their church and places of worship. They leave behind their recreational pursuits and their hobbies. And if need be, they're willing to lay down their lives for each of us and for their country. And I know that you feel and share the same sentiment that we are grateful to them. We honor the memory today of the fallen who served this country and gave their life in service to the United States of America. We express gratitude and think in this moment and in all moments of the men and women who continue to serve us now. We have some veterans in the room today. Maybe you can just raise your hand if you're in the military or a veteran. And let's give them a round of applause. Each and every one of you and what your service represents. If we had time to go around the room today and talk to each of you about your uniquely American story, if we had a chance to have you answer the question, what do you love about America and what brings you joy in your life, what brings you passion in your life, what are some of the lessons that you've learned in your time in Iowa or across this great country and across this great land. I think we hear some incredible, inspiring stories about the role that family has played in your life. I think we hear some remarkable stories about the role that family has played in your life. I think we hear some incredible stories about dreams or ideas that you've had about building something new and better and different. Some of the lessons you've learned in success, maybe some of the challenges you've learned if it didn't go quite as you had hoped. I think we'd hear about some wonderful experiences where people in a moment of discouragement pulled alongside and gave you encouragement and a pat on the back and maybe dusted you off and told you to get back in the game in various ways. I bet if we went around the room, we'd hear some really incredible stories about maybe some challenges you faced in your life. Maybe for some of you it's been financial, maybe for others it's been health or family. And I think we hear some incredible stories about people coming out of difficulty and rising back again to success. And all of those stories would reflect, I think, stories of hard work, individual responsibility, faith, family, industriousness, the ability to be free, to have a dream, to try something new, to build something. But I don't think many of the stories would relate to how government came into your life and transformed your heart or your life trajectory in some way. And I share that story with you on this that perspective with you on this Memorial Day because we are the greatest nation the world has ever known, not because of our government, but because of our people. This is the United States of America, and we are the American people. And the goodness of this country is found not in the halls of Congress or in the bureaucracy, but it's in the hearts and souls and spirit of the individuals who make this country great day in and day out, as they work hard to raise families, as they work hard to make ends meet financially, as they try to start things and grow things and provide new businesses and jobs, as they might have a dream or a creation that they want to advance or further. And that spirit, that American spirit that makes this country great, will continue to make it great in the future, is something we need to harvest. Now, it really frames up a much larger debate, though, about the role of government in people's life. Because most of us in this room, I suspect, and maybe there's some from the other side of the aisle who don't automatically agree with the Republican or conservative perspective, but we're in a competition for the future direction of this country. What it values, why it values it, how the role of government plays out in people's lives. And each time the government pushes into an area and takes over one more piece of turf or responsibility that was previously reserved for families, or that was previously reserved for neighborhoods, or that was previously the responsibility of community or places of worship or charity or philanthropy, or they push into areas that were previously the province of entrepreneurs or business or private markets, and they say, you know what, we're taking over that space now, or they say we're going to make it more difficult for you to do it, or more expensive, or they say it's going to take longer, or it's going to cost you more, or the future is going to be uncertain because of regulation. Every time they push in and take over one more chunk of what was the non-governmental space in our country, they not only grow budgets, they not only grow their footprint, but they do something else that I think is equally corrosive to our country. They weigh down and they discourage the American spirit. And so should we be concerned about the numbers that they're running up? Of course. Should we be concerned about the burden and the delay and the expense that they're visiting on the economy? Of course. But equally important is the collateral effects of that, is to say to people who are focused on that can-do American spirit, you know what, the government's going to be in your way. They're going to make it more difficult. They're going to make it more expensive. They're going to make it more heavy. They're going to discourage you. They're going to slow you down. And when you get enough people who have a can-do spirit being discouraged by their own government, it begins to take a very different turn for the future of the country. And one of the most eye-opening experiences I've had as I've traveled this great nation is to talk to people day in and day out all over this country 6 days a week. And you'd be amazed at how many people still love this country, of course, but they feel that maybe the future for the country is not as bright as the past, or they feel that maybe the America that we knew in terms of how we perform is slipping away. And we can't have that. We need to take back this country and say we understand that government does some things and needs to do them well, but they need to focus on the limited charge to government and allow the rest of the country to dream and to breathe and to have that American spirit and that American dream. So each of those stories would be different for you, but I think they'd have those common themes. And I have my own American story I'll just share with you briefly. I grew up, as some of you know, in a meatpacking town in the state just north of here, South St. Paul, Minnesota. Back in the day, it was a home to these world's largest stockyards and meatpacking plants, 6+ stories of slaughterhouses surrounded by these big stockyards. And if you've ever been around those kinds of facilities, if you can imagine a relatively small town dominated by that kind of industry, the sights and the sounds and the smells and the people that would be reflected by that kind of great community. I was proud to grow up there, but it wasn't without some bumps in the road and some challenges. My mom died when I was young. I was just 16 when my mom passed away of ovarian cancer. My dad, for much of his life, was a truck driver, and over the course of time, he got promoted to dispatcher and eventually terminal manager. We were very proud of his ability to move up. That was kind of his American dream, although when I got out of college at the University of Minnesota, my first paycheck was bigger than his last one. It's kind of a bittersweet moment as we compared that trajectory of our lives. Not too much longer after my mom passed on, my dad lost his job for a while. He was able to get employment again in the future, but he lost his job for a while. So at a pretty young age, I had a chance to see a town that these big meatpacking plants all shut down. And of course, moms and dads up and down the street all through our community, unemployed, worried about how they were going to take care of their family, take care of their children, how they were going to make ends meet. I also had a chance to see my own family go through challenge, and I saw the power of a loving family come together in a moment of crisis and challenge. I got to see the power of a job as a ticket to opportunity. Not long after my mom died, the local manager of the produce department at the grocery store called our house he said, I heard about your family's plight. And guess what? You can show up here at the grocery store Saturday morning at 6 a.m. and you'll have a job. I'll put you to work. So I worked there the next 7 years at the grocery store through high school and college and into law school. That helped me pay for school and some of the expenses of life. I also saw the value of doing my part, individual responsibility, making sure I got my rear end in gear and worked as hard as I possibly could to live up to the opportunity that was put in front of me. Then of course I learned about getting into my faith in challenging times and in all times. So some of these lessons, if somebody wants to be your president, running for president of the United States, I think you want to know, where does this person come from? What does he or she believe? What's it based on? What shapes their life perspective and values? Can we count on him or her? Do their words and their deeds line up in life, in their record and otherwise? Is this somebody who shares our compass settings and believes in the true north compass settings for our country? And so I share that background with you not as a suggestion of empathy or sympathy to me, but just so you know a little bit about where I come from and what I believe and why I believe it. Now just lastly, in terms of the challenges facing our country and what we need to do going forward. We formally announced my campaign about a week ago here in Iowa, in Des Moines. I was proud to do it here. It was a great day, a wonderful kickoff to what I hope will be a really important debate and communicating with people of Iowa going forward. But as you know, we've got some work ahead of us. And I won't go through it all, but I want to get you just a couple of the key things that I'm focused on and want to communicate to the country. Number one, we need to be a nation that turns toward God, not away from God. This is not the rhetoric of a modern-day politician. It's in our founding documents. It's in the founding documents of Iowa. It's in the founding documents of Minnesota. It's in the founding documents of our country. And we should make sure that we remain grateful to God and acknowledge the blessings and privileges and freedoms we've been given. They come from our Creator, not from our member of Congress. And we need to keep that straight as well. Number two, we can't be a successful country unless we're a secure and strong country. And so the first responsibility of the United States federal government is to make sure our nation is protected and that our people are as secure as possible. And there's a lot under the hood of that, but a basic premise in life, I'm sure you learned it somewhere, maybe in business, maybe in sports, maybe in other unfortunate situation, but it's always true. If you're dealing with thugs and bullies, they only understand one thing. They don't understand weakness or tardiness or equivocation or moral equivalence. They understand strength. And so when we're defining and projecting the security interests of the United States of America here and around the world in a way that protects our security and our safety, we need to make sure we do it with clarity and strength and conviction, not moral equivalence or apologies or going around the world and saying we're one of equals, that our way is better than any other way. The United States of America has a unique position in the world, and we need to make sure we stand shoulder to shoulder with our friends around the world and make sure that our values and perspectives are understood and if need be defended. And we have the ability, in fact the unquestioned superiority from a military and security standpoint to back that up. We need to remain committed to that. Number three, we can't be a successful country unless our people have work and they have jobs. For most Americans, their pathway to a quality of life depends on whether they have a job or not. Okay? And then we've experienced this in your life as well. So as I travel the country, the job providers, the people who are the ones who are trying to start businesses and grow businesses, tell me the same message all day, every day, just like they did when I was governor of Minnesota. Please get the government off my back. Do those things that make the load lighter, not heavier. And in the interest of time, I won't go through it all, but you know what they are. As it relates to taxation, as it relates to regulation, as it relates to litigation, as it relates to the burdens of trying to get a permit and time and expense and that, as it relates to energy costs, as it relates to all those things that make the cost of growing jobs heavier and the burden heavier, we need to make those lighter. And the United States needs to be more competitive. Can't be pro-job and anti-business. That's like being pro-egg and anti-chicken. That doesn't work. And so let's be about being pro-jobs because it's the way that most of our citizens that we're trying to serve will have a quality of life pathway and opportunity. And this is not about, going out to Washington, D.C. and telling people who are trying to start our businesses, particularly our small and mid-sized businesses, the road ahead is uncertain, it's going to be heavier, it's going to be more difficult. We want just the opposite of that. Fourth, we got to make sure we live within our means. You can't go out and deficit spend for very long as a family or as a business, and the government can't do it anymore. And so we've got to make sure that the government has a balanced budget, only spends the money that it's taking in and not anymore. That's not what they're doing now. Every second that we're sitting here, the federal government spends in deficit 40 cents a second. Every dollar they spend, 40 cents of it is deficit or debt. Think about that. They take in $2.2 trillion a year, they spend $3.7 trillion. Just because we follow Greece into democracy doesn't mean we're going to follow them or should follow them into bankruptcy. We have to live within our means. Next, we got to reform our government systems. This is fifth. These government systems, whether they're education or healthcare or the like, can't look like an open bar. I use the analogy that if you want to see how people behave when they think something's free, go to two weapons. Go to one where there's an open bar, go to one where there's a cash bar. You will see two very different sets of behaviors. And government has been running itself as an open bar. The fifth is created, the lie is sustained, that you can consume as much as you want. You don't have to worry about price measurements. You don't have to worry about quality measurements. The bill goes somewhere else and it's quote-unquote free. That mentality, the open bar mentality, has got itself in a big heap of trouble, as you know, and we've got to get these things fixed. And then very lastly, we can't be a successful nation with a third of our children essentially uneducated or undereducated or unskilled or underskilled and being unable to access the economy of today or tomorrow. This is mostly a state and local and parent issue, not a federal issue, but I flag it for you because it's so profoundly important to the future of our country. Nationally, we have about a third of our students dropping out of high school. And if you drop out of high school in today's world, you get kicked to the sidelines pretty hard by life. And you becomes very difficult for you to access the economy in a way that allows you to pay for things yourself. And so then the call comes for more government stuff, more government housing, more government health care, more government transportation, more government everything. And it's not in our best interest as a nation, nor is it morally sustainable or strategically sustainable, nor is it even from a matter of civil rights. It's a civil rights issue of our time. We have to get as many of our children properly educated as possible, and that's not going to happen through a one-size-fits-all, government-run, top-down, monopoly school system. We got to open up choice and options for children, let parents be in the driver's seat for what's best for them and their family, and make choices from government schools, charter schools, open enrollment, private schools, online learning, home schools, whatever works best for the children. And the parents making the decision in that regard is what we should support, both financially and with our words and our deeds. I'll just close by telling you, a lot of people are saying, well, yeah, this all sounds good, Governor, but can you really do it? Well, the fact of the matter is every Republican candidate for president is going to roll through town at the Pizza Ranch or some gathering like this, and they're going to tell you, hey, look, I'm for cutting taxes, I'm for reducing spending, I'm for school choice and accountability, I'm for market-based health care reform instead of government-based health care reform, I'm for being tough on terrorism, I'm for pro-growth economic policies, and down the list. It'll all sound similar, I think, but I think the question for you that I'd ask you to look at is not what are these folks saying, but have they actually done it? And given their background, given their record, can we count on that person under difficult circumstances, under hostile circumstances, to keep his or her head pointed to true north and keep plowing ahead and not just talking about these things, but getting them done? If you look at my record as a governor of Minnesota, which isn't exactly a conservative hotbed, as you know, during my 8 years as governor, I cut taxes $800 million net during that 8 years or so, even though we had 2 recessions. We cut spending in real terms for the first time in 150 years from budget cycle to budget cycle. We were one of the first states in the nation to move from seniority pay to offering performance pay statewide for teachers for more accountability in schools. We did market-based instead of government-based health care reform. We took on the public employee unions and got pension and public employee benefit reforms before it was popular, before it was the cool thing to do, and got it accomplished. We did welfare reform, tort reform, immigration reform, all of the stuff, or much of the stuff that I know you're most interested in. We're not just going to come through town and say, here's a nice speech. but we have a record of I have a record of standing in there under the most difficult of circumstances and getting the job done for the people that I serve in executive leadership positions. So I hope that brings some perspective to you as well. And in that regard, we fought hard. I had a mostly Democrat legislature during my time as governor. And as the first government shut down in the 150-year history of my state, I set a record for issuing vetoes in my state. I personally used the executive authority to take out more spending out of the state budgets in my years as governor than the 142 years worth of governors combined. And again, this is not in a place that it's easy to do. This is Minnesota. It's like being the governor of Vermont or California or something like that. So moving the needle that hard, that far, in that place is not easy. The Cato Institute gave governors grades, A through F. There's only 4 governors in the country. The Cato Institute's a tough grading libertarian think tank, maybe the toughest grader in the country. They gave only 4 governors in the country an A grade. The other 3 aren't running for president. They're from Louisiana and West Virginia and South Carolina. I'm the only other one who got the A. And by the way, I'm the only one in the north half of the country that got the A to give you a little third-party validation of what we're into. So I'll close and leave the rest of the time for questions, but I want to thank you for coming out on Memorial Day. I hope that you not only are mindful of the challenges we face, but maintain a can-do, optimistic spirit about the future of this country. If we can get the government back in its proper limits, and we can unleash and once again encourage the American spirit that says we can do this, I can do this, I have a dream to build something, start something, grow something, that the burdens that government puts on me will be reduced, not increased. And we have the understanding that what made this country great wasn't that we're the biggest in the world. We're not, population-wise. We're not the cheapest place, although we got to be more competitive. Our secret is that we're the freest place. And freedom is not just defined by getting rid of external threats. It's also making sure we have government that doesn't suffocate or stifle that American spirit. So I hope you'll join our cause, and I look forward to your questions and comments. Thanks for coming out today. All right, who wants to start? Sir, just yell it out.
Do you think you can get rid of the czars that Obama has knighted, or whatever he's doing up there?
I know we can get rid of the czars. The gentleman's referring to President Obama's practice. Other presidents have done it to an extent, but he took it to a whole nother level, which is to circumvent the Senate confirmation process and use senior leaders in government by basically appointing them czars, giving them informal responsibilities, but yet they don't have the same kind of oversight and approval as traditional senior leaders in government. I can assure you, I can guarantee you, sir, if I become president, when I become president, we will end that practice. Yes?
I've been getting information from a group called Strong America Now about reducing government weight. What is your contact with them, and what is your plan to do?
It's a great organization. Thank you, sir. There's a group organizing in Iowa called Strong America Now. As we get closer to the caucuses, you'll hear more and more about it. But the short version is a former senior business leader, I think from Georgia, if I recall correctly, was one of the leaders or inventors of a process called Lean Six Sigma. It sounds a little unusual, but what it really is a process of government redesign, or redesigning the private sector that can be brought to government to make government leaner, faster, quicker, cheaper, and the like. I used it in Minnesota, by the way, in certain of our agencies. It works. And so Strong America Now wants to know of the presidential candidates in 2012, will you agree to bring Lean Six Sigma into the federal government and book a certain amount of savings because of the reform that comes with it? The answer is yes. I have been and will continue to be the first 2012 presidential candidate who said I appreciate their work and I'm signing up with their cause. And 2 is I've actually done this in Minnesota and we've had great success with it. Yes?
What are you going to do about Congress giving themselves raises, which they like to do very often?
Yeah, the congressional raises is really annoying. I forget what they make now, but I think it's I think it's more than that, plus benefits and the like. I think given the economy and the economic conditions, I call for freezing the federal government's wages overall and freezing their benefits overall. As part of the tour we were on last week,